What if the quiet man sitting alone at a bus stop was carrying a secret, so important that one wrong decision could shake an entire city? Would you judge him by his old jacket, or would you wait to discover who he really was? Stay with this story, because what happened on one ordinary Monday morning changed more lives than anyone standing at that bus stop could have imagined. The sun had just begun to rise over the fictional city of Ashcroft. Morning traffic was slowly filling the streets. People hurried toward work with coffee cups in their hands. School buses rolled past busy intersections, and office workers checked their phones while waiting for the day to begin. It looked like any other weekday. But at one small bus stop near the center of the city, something unexpected was about to happen. Sitting quietly on the wooden bench was a man named Marcus Bennett. He wore a simple gray jacket, dark blue jeans, and well-used brown shoes. Beside him rested an old leather briefcase that looked as though it had traveled with him for many years. Nothing about Marcus attracted attention. He wasn't talking on the phone. He wasn't looking around nervously. He simply watched the buses pass by while reading a small notebook. An elderly woman standing nearby smiled politely. "Looks like the bus is running late again," she said. Marcus smiled back. "It usually arrives when people are about to lose patience." The woman laughed softly. "I hope you're right." Marcus closed his notebook and looked down the road. His face remained calm. There was no sign of stress, even though he checked his watch only once before placing it back into his pocket. Across the street, a patrol car slowed down. Inside sat Officer Ryan Carter, beginning what he expected would be another ordinary shift. As he drove past the bus stop, a message came through his radio. "Possible suspicious individual reported near East Maple bus stop. Caller says the subject has been sitting there for an extended period with a briefcase." Ryan glanced toward the bench. His eyes landed on Marcus. The officer looked around the area. Everyone else appeared busy. Some people were talking. Others were checking their phones. Only Marcus sat quietly, almost too quietly. Officer Carter pulled his patrol car to the curb. The sound of the engine made several people look up. Marcus calmly lifted his eyes as the officer stepped out of the vehicle. "Morning," Officer Carter said. Marcus nodded politely. "Good morning, officer." The answer was respectful. The officer walked a little closer. "Mind telling me your name?" "Marcus Bennett." "And what are you doing here?" "I'm waiting for the next bus." Officer Carter looked at the nearly empty bench. "You've been here a while." Marcus smiled gently. "I have. Where are you headed?" "Downtown." The officer looked toward the old briefcase. "Business?" "You could say that." The answer sounded simple enough, but something about Marcus's calm voice made Officer Carter feel uneasy. Most people became nervous when questioned by the police. Marcus didn't. Instead, he seemed completely comfortable. That confidence immediately raised more questions in the officer's mind. Several people waiting for the bus quietly watched the conversation. A young college student removed one earbud. The elderly woman stopped checking the road. Even a nearby coffee vendor looked over from his cart. Officer Carter pointed toward the leather briefcase. "Would you mind opening that for me?" Marcus looked down at the briefcase for a moment before meeting the officer's eyes again. His voice stayed calm. "Officer, may I ask why?" The simple question changed the atmosphere in an instant. Officer Carter's friendly expression slowly disappeared. He took one step closer. "Are you refusing a lawful request?" Marcus shook his head. "No, sir." He paused for just a second. "I'm only asking what made you believe I had done something wrong." For a brief moment, the entire bus stop became silent. Officer Carter stared at Marcus without saying a word. Then his hand slowly moved toward the handcuffs hanging from his duty belt. And everyone standing there realized. This ordinary morning was about to become anything but ordinary. Officer Ryan Carter's hand rested on the handcuffs hanging from his belt, but he didn't remove them just yet. His eyes stayed locked on Marcus Bennett, searching for something that didn't seem to be there. Marcus remained seated. His hands rested peacefully on his old leather briefcase. He wasn't looking for a way to leave. He wasn't acting nervous. If anything, he looked like the only calm person at the bus stop. The silence grew heavier. The elderly woman quietly stepped back. The college student slipped his phone into his pocket but kept watching. Even the coffee vendor stopped serving customers. Officer Carter finally spoke. "I asked you a simple question." Marcus nodded politely. "You did. So why won't you answer it?" Marcus smiled gently. "I already did, officer." The officer frowned. I asked why I should believe you're just waiting for a bus. Marcus looked toward the road where the bus was supposed to arrive. Because that's exactly what I'm doing. His calm answer only made the officer more suspicious. You don't seem worried. Marcus looked back at him. Should I be? That question caught Officer Carter off guard. For a second, he had no answer. Most people tried to explain themselves. Some became angry. Others became frightened. Marcus did none of those things. He simply asked questions that made the officer think. Unfortunately, thinking wasn't what Officer Carter wanted to do anymore. He wanted control. He pointed toward the briefcase again. Stand up. Marcus slowly stood. He never made a sudden movement. He picked up the briefcase with one hand and kept the other clearly visible. Placed the briefcase on the bench. Marcus quietly did exactly as instructed. Now step back. Again, Marcus obeyed without hesitation. The officer looked at the passengers standing nearby. Everyone please stay where you are. No one moved. The morning felt strangely quiet. Cars continued driving past, but the people at the bus stop seemed frozen in place. Officer Carter carefully looked around the briefcase. Old leather. Scratches on every corner. A worn handle. Nothing about it looked expensive. Yet Marcus had kept it beside him the entire time. What's inside? The officer asked. Marcus answered honestly. Documents. What kind of documents? Important ones. The officer raised an eyebrow. Important to who? Marcus paused for just a moment. To more people than you might imagine. The answer immediately caught everyone's attention. The coffee vendor quietly whispered, what does that mean? No one knew. Officer Carter certainly didn't like it. He stepped closer. Open it. Marcus looked at the briefcase. Then back at the officer. I will. The officer waited. Marcus took a slow breath. But before I do. He looked directly into the officer's eyes. May I ask one more question? Officer Carter sighed impatiently. What now? If everything inside turns out to be exactly what I said. Marcus paused. Will you tell me why I was treated like a suspect? The officer folded his arms. We're not there yet. Marcus gave a small nod. I understand. He reached toward the briefcase. Every person at the bus stop watched carefully. The elderly woman quietly held her breath. The college student instinctively unlocked his phone. The coffee vendor leaned a little farther forward. Marcus slowly opened the brass locks. Click, click. He gently lifted the lid. Inside were several thick folders stacked neatly beside a tablet, a notebook, and a sealed envelope marked with a blue security strip. Nothing looked dangerous. Nothing looked illegal. Officer Carter frowned. This is it. Marcus nodded. Yes. The officer picked up one of the folders. It was filled with charts, financial reports, and pages covered with numbers. None of it made sense to him. What is all this? Marcus answered in the same calm voice. Work. Before the officer could ask another question, a phone inside the briefcase suddenly began ringing. Not Marcus's pocket. Not the tablet. A separate secure phone hidden beneath the folders. The screen lit up brightly. Across the display were 4 words that made Marcus's expression change for the very first time that morning. Urgent city priority call. Marcus looked at the phone. Then quietly looked at Officer Carter. Officer. His voice remained calm. But I strongly recommend you let me answer that. The phone kept ringing. Once. Twice. 3 times. And somehow, everyone at the bus stop felt that if the call went unanswered, this ordinary morning was about to become a problem far bigger than anyone could imagine. The secure phone continued ringing inside the briefcase. Once. Twice. 3 times. No one spoke. The sound echoed through the quiet bus stop, making every passing second feel longer than the last. Officer Ryan Carter looked down at the phone, then back at Marcus. You've got a lot of interesting gadgets. Marcus didn't smile this time. Officer, that call is important. Carter folded his arms. Important enough to interrupt a police investigation? Marcus answered honestly. It could interrupt much more than that. Those words only made the officer more suspicious. He reached into the briefcase and picked up the phone. The screen was still glowing. Urgent city priority call. The phone continued vibrating in his hand. Marcus spoke carefully. Please don't answer it. The officer looked up. So now you're telling me what I can and can't do? No, sir. Marcus remained calm. I'm simply asking you to let me handle it. Officer Carter stared at him for a few seconds before pressing the silence button. The ringing stopped. The entire bus stop became quiet again. Marcus slowly closed his eyes for just a moment. It wasn't anger. It wasn't panic. It almost looked like disappointment. The elderly woman noticed it immediately. She quietly whispered to herself, "Why does he seem worried about someone else, instead of himself?" Nobody had an answer. Officer Carter placed the phone back into the briefcase. "You can return that call later." Marcus looked at the officer. "I hope that's still possible." Those simple words sent an uneasy feeling through everyone standing nearby. Before Carter could respond, another patrol car slowly pulled up beside the bus stop. A younger officer stepped out. His name tag read Officer Ethan Brooks. He walked toward Carter with a curious expression. "Morning, sir." "Morning. What do we have?" Carter pointed toward Marcus. "Suspicious individual." Ethan looked at Marcus. The first thing he noticed wasn't the briefcase. It wasn't the documents. It wasn't even the secure phone. It was Marcus's calm expression. "Did he resist?" Ethan asked. "No." "Did he threaten anyone?" "No." "Did he try to leave?" "No." Ethan looked slightly confused. "So, what's the problem?" Carter pointed toward the briefcase. "I'm still figuring that out." Marcus quietly spoke. "Officer." Ethan turned toward him. "Yes. I appreciate you asking questions before making conclusions." Carter immediately interrupted. "You don't ask the questions here." Marcus nodded respectfully. "I understand." Again. No argument. No complaint. Only calm answers. The college student standing nearby couldn't stop watching. He quietly opened the camera on his phone but kept it lowered at his side. Something about this situation didn't feel normal anymore. Officer Ethan looked through the open briefcase. Folders. Reports. Financial papers. A tablet. A notebook filled with handwritten notes. Everything looked organized. Nothing looked dangerous. Then he noticed something else. At the bottom of the briefcase was a sealed blue folder with large silver letters across the front. Confidential. Ethan looked at Carter. "Have you opened this?" "Not yet." Marcus finally spoke again. "I'd appreciate it if that folder remained sealed." Carter smiled. "Really?" "Yes. Now I'm definitely opening it." Marcus didn't react. He simply looked toward the street. Far down the road, a large digital clock on the side of a downtown office building changed to 8 a.m. Marcus quietly checked his watch. For the first time that morning, he looked genuinely concerned. Ethan noticed immediately. "Were you supposed to be somewhere?" Marcus answered without looking away from the clock. "Yes." "Where?" Marcus took a slow breath. "At a meeting that should have already started." "What kind of meeting?" Marcus looked back at both officers. "The kind where every minute matters." Before anyone could ask another question, 3 black city sedans turned the corner together. They weren't speeding. They weren't using sirens. But every one of them was heading directly toward the bus stop. Marcus watched them arrive without showing the slightest surprise. Officer Ethan frowned. "Sir." He looked at Carter. "I don't think those cars are here by accident." The first sedan came to a smooth stop. Its rear door slowly opened, and the person stepping out looked straight at Marcus. As if he had been searching for him all morning. The rear door of the first black city sedan slowly opened. Every eye at the bus stop turned toward it. The elderly woman stopped breathing for a moment. The college student lowered his phone. Even Officer Ryan Carter forgot about the open briefcase. A man wearing a dark blue business suit stepped out. He looked to be in his early 50s. His hair was neatly combed, and he carried a thin black folder under one arm. There was nothing flashy about him. But the confidence in the way he walked made people move aside without being asked. He looked around only once. Then his eyes stopped on Marcus. For a brief second, relief appeared on his face. He walked directly toward him. "Mr. Bennett." His voice was calm. "There you are." Marcus gave a small nod. "Good morning. I'm sorry we're late." Marcus smiled politely. "You arrived exactly when I expected." Officer Carter immediately stepped between them. "Hold on." The man stopped. "I'm Officer Ryan Carter." The man nodded respectfully. "I understand. This individual is currently being questioned." The stranger looked toward Marcus before speaking again. "May I ask why?" "We received a report." "What report?" "A suspicious person." The man looked around the bus stop, then back at Marcus. He looked genuinely confused. What exactly made him suspicious? Officer Carter pointed toward the briefcase. The documents. The secure phone. His behavior. The stranger looked at Marcus again. Did he refuse to identify himself? No. Did he threaten anyone? No. Did he resist? No. The man slowly nodded. I see. Then he asked the same question Marcus had already asked. So, what law did he break? Officer Carter didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked toward Ethan. Officer Ethan quietly lowered his eyes. He had started asking himself that same question several minutes ago. The stranger noticed the silence. He took one careful step closer. Officer. His voice remained respectful. I strongly recommend that you verify Mr. Bennett's identity before taking another step. Officer Carter sighed. Everyone keeps saying that. The man smiled politely. Because it's important. Marcus remained completely silent. He never interrupted. He never tried to explain who he was. The college student quietly whispered to the coffee vendor, why won't he just tell them? The vendor slowly shook his head. I don't think he wants special treatment. Officer Carter looked back at Marcus. If all these people know you. He paused. Why are you standing here waiting for a public bus? Marcus answered with complete honesty. Because that's how I plan to travel today. You could have called for a ride. I could have. You could have told me who you were. I could have. The officer folded his arms. But you didn't. Marcus looked directly into his eyes. I wanted our first conversation to be between two ordinary people. Those words made the stranger smile quietly. Officer Ethan noticed it. He also noticed something else. The man in the business suit wasn't acting like Marcus's boss. He wasn't acting like his employee either. The respect between them looked equal. That made Ethan even more curious. Before anyone could speak again, another phone began ringing. This time it wasn't Marcus's secure phone. It belonged to the man in the business suit. He glanced at the screen. His calm expression immediately changed. He answered at once. Yes. He listened silently. Only 3 words escaped his mouth. He's here. A short pause followed. The man looked toward Marcus. Then toward Officer Carter. Finally, he quietly replied, no. They haven't verified him yet. The call ended. The stranger slipped the phone back into his pocket. Marcus calmly asked, has the meeting been delayed? The man nodded. As long as possible. Officer Carter frowned. What meeting? The stranger answered carefully. The one the entire city has been waiting for. Before Carter could ask another question, the sound of more engines echoed down the street. Everyone turned. This time it wasn't one sedan. It wasn't 2. 5 more official city vehicles were slowly pulling toward the bus stop. And as they stopped one after another, every person stepping out looked directly at Marcus Bennett. Not one of them looked surprised to see him. Instead, they all looked worried that he hadn't arrived where he was supposed to be. 5 more official city vehicles slowly pulled up beside the bus stop. Their doors opened almost at the same time. Men and women dressed in business suits stepped out, each carrying folders, tablets, or briefcases. They weren't rushing. They weren't speaking loudly. Yet their expressions made it clear that something important had already been delayed. Officer Ryan Carter looked around in confusion. What is going on here? No one answered him. Instead, every newcomer looked toward Marcus Bennett. One after another, they greeted him politely. Good morning, Mr. Bennett. Marcus smiled and nodded. Good morning. The people waiting at the bus stop exchanged nervous looks. The elderly woman whispered, why do all these people know him? The coffee vendor quietly replied, I don't think he's just an ordinary passenger. Officer Ethan Brooks noticed something else. None of the newcomers seemed surprised to find Marcus standing beside 2 police officers. What surprised them was that he was still standing there. A woman carrying a black portfolio stepped forward. She looked at Marcus first. Are you all right? Marcus answered calmly. I'm fine. She gave a small sigh of relief. We've been trying to reach you. Marcus glanced toward the open briefcase. My phone rang. Officer Carter crossed his arms. I stopped him from answering. The woman slowly turned toward the officer. You stopped the call? Yes. She remained silent for several seconds. Then she politely asked, may I ask why? I was conducting an investigation. She nodded respectfully. I understand. Then she asked the same question everyone else had asked that morning. Did you verify his identity first? Officer Carter's patience was running out. Why does everyone keep asking me that? The woman answered quietly. Because the answer matters. Marcus remained silent. He never interrupted. He never tried to defend himself. That calm behavior made Officer Ethan even more uncomfortable. He quietly walked closer to Marcus. Mr. Bennett. Marcus looked at him. Yes, officer. I have to ask. Marcus smiled. Go ahead. If you knew all these people were looking for you. He paused. Why didn't you simply tell Officer Carter who you really are? Marcus looked around the bus stop before answering. Because respect shouldn't depend on a title. The words settled over the crowd like a heavy blanket. The elderly woman slowly lowered her eyes. The college student quietly nodded. Even Officer Ethan found himself thinking about those words. Officer Carter wasn't convinced. He pointed toward the briefcase. If he's so important. He looked directly at Marcus. Then what's inside those folders that has everyone so nervous? Marcus answered honestly. Plans. What kind of plans? Plans that affect thousands of people. Officer Carter laughed softly. That's a big claim. Marcus nodded. It is. Before Carter could respond, another official hurried over carrying a tablet. He looked worried. Mr. Bennett. Marcus turned toward him. Yes. We've delayed the meeting twice. Marcus asked only one question. How much longer? Maybe 15 minutes. Marcus nodded slowly. That's all we have. Officer Carter looked completely confused. What meeting keeps getting delayed? The man holding the tablet hesitated. He looked at Marcus as if asking permission to speak. Marcus gently shook his head. Not yet. The official immediately understood. He said nothing more. That single moment caught Officer Ethan's attention. These people weren't making decisions on their own. They were waiting for Marcus. The thought made him uneasy. Just then, the secure phone inside the briefcase began ringing again. This time, the ringtone sounded different. Longer. Sharper. More urgent. Marcus looked directly at Officer Carter. His voice remained calm. Officer. Carter looked back. I've respected every instruction you've given me. Marcus paused. Now I'm asking you for one chance to answer that call. The phone continued ringing. No one moved. No one spoke. Officer Carter slowly looked down at the flashing screen. Across it appeared a new message that hadn't been there before. Final contact attempt. The officer frowned. What happens if I don't answer it? Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he quietly looked toward the growing line of city officials. Then he met the officer's eyes. You won't be delaying me anymore. He paused. You'll be delaying an entire city. At that exact moment, a black executive sedan turned the corner and headed straight toward the bus stop. The instant the city officials saw it, every one of them stood a little straighter. And for the first time that morning, Marcus Bennett looked genuinely concerned. The black executive sedan rolled to a smooth stop just a few feet from the bus stop. Unlike the other city vehicles, this one carried no markings. Its windows were dark, and for several long seconds, no one stepped out. The silence became almost unbearable. Officer Ryan Carter stared at the car. So now who is this? No one answered. The city officials simply stood still, their eyes fixed on the sedan. Even the woman holding the black portfolio looked nervous for the first time that morning. Officer Ethan Brooks noticed something unusual. Every official had stopped talking. No one was checking a phone. No one was whispering. It was as if they were all waiting for permission to breathe. Marcus Bennett remained calm, but Ethan noticed one small change. Marcus checked his watch again. Only this time, he slowly closed it and slipped it back into his pocket. The officer couldn't help asking. Were they expecting you somewhere at exactly 8 o'clock? Marcus nodded. Yes. And now you're late. Yes. But you're still not worried about yourself. Marcus smiled gently. I've never been worried about myself. The answer stayed in Ethan's mind. If Marcus wasn't worried about himself, then who was he worried about? Finally, the rear door of the executive sedan opened. A tall man in a navy suit stepped out, followed by a woman carrying a thick binder filled with documents. Neither of them looked at the officers first. They walked straight toward Marcus. The man stopped a few feet away. Mr. Bennett. Marcus nodded politely. Good morning. The man gave a quiet sigh. We've delayed the session 3 times. I know. We can't delay it again. Marcus looked toward Officer Carter before answering. I understand. Officer Carter stepped forward. "I'm sorry, but nobody is going anywhere until I understand what's happening." The man looked at him respectfully. "And that's exactly why we're here." He reached into his inside pocket and removed a leather identification wallet. He opened it slowly. Officer Carter studied it carefully. The identification clearly showed the seal of the fictional city of Ashcroft. The officer's expression changed. "This is city administration." The man nodded. "Correct. I'm Deputy City Manager Thomas Hale." He paused. "And I've been looking for Mr. Bennett for the last 25 minutes. The people standing at the bus stop quietly looked at one another. The title sounded important. Very important. But Officer Carter still wasn't convinced. What does that have to do with him? Thomas Hale looked toward Marcus. Then back at the officer. "Everything." Before Carter could ask another question, the secure phone inside the briefcase rang again. This time, no one ignored it. Marcus calmly looked at the officer. "May I answer it now?" For the first time that morning. Officer Carter hesitated. He slowly picked up the phone. The screen displayed another message. Immediate response required. The officer looked at Marcus. "I should have let you answer earlier." Marcus didn't criticize him. He simply replied, "It's not too late." Officer Carter handed him the phone. Marcus answered immediately. "Marcus Bennett speaking." Everyone at the bus stop listened carefully. Marcus spoke very little. "Yes." A short pause. "I'm here." Another pause. There was an unexpected delay. He listened quietly before smiling. "I'll be there as soon as possible." The call ended. Marcus placed the phone back inside the briefcase. Officer Carter couldn't hold back his curiosity anymore. "Who was that?" Marcus answered honestly. "The people waiting for today's budget approval meeting." Officer Carter frowned. "What budget meeting?" Marcus looked directly into his eyes. "The one that decides how next year's city funding will be distributed." Those words made several city officials exchange worried looks. Officer Ethan slowly whispered, "That's a major meeting." Thomas Hale nodded. "It is." Officer Carter looked confused. "But why are they waiting for him?" No one answered. Not immediately. Instead, the woman carrying the thick binder stepped forward and carefully opened it. She removed a single sealed appointment document and handed it to Thomas Hale. Hale looked at Marcus. Then he turned toward Officer Carter. His voice remained calm. "Officer." He paused for a moment. "I believe it's finally time for you to know exactly who Mr. Bennett is." He slowly unfolded the document. Officer Carter leaned forward. His confident expression began to fade. Because printed across the top of the page was a title he never expected to see. And it explained why an entire city's future had been waiting, for the quiet man at the bus stop. Officer Ryan Carter stared at the appointment document without blinking. His hands slowly tightened around the paper as he read the title again, making sure he hadn't misunderstood it. Executive Budget Director, City of Ashcroft. For several long seconds, he couldn't speak. Officer Ethan Brooks stepped closer. "Sir, what does it say?" Ryan slowly handed him the document. Ethan read the first page, then looked up at Marcus with complete disbelief. You're the new Executive Budget Director?" Marcus gave a small, respectful nod. "Yes." The people standing at the bus stop looked at one another in silence. The elderly woman covered her mouth. The college student quietly whispered, "He's the person everyone has been waiting for." Deputy City Manager Thomas Hale answered before anyone else could. "Not just waiting for." He looked toward Marcus with respect. "The city cannot begin today's final budget approval meeting without him." Officer Carter felt his heart sink. His eyes moved back to the leather briefcase. The financial reports. The confidential folders. The secure phone. The repeated calls. Every warning Marcus had calmly given him suddenly made perfect sense. Marcus looked at the officer without a trace of anger. "I never wanted special treatment." He paused. "I only wanted to be treated fairly." Those simple words hit harder than anything else that morning. Before Officer Carter could respond, Thomas Hale received another urgent message on his phone. He quickly read it, then looked at Marcus. "Sir." Marcus nodded. "I know." Hale lowered the phone. "The mayor has already arrived." Everyone became silent. Marcus calmly picked up his briefcase. Then he looked toward Officer Carter one last time. "If you're ready." He smiled gently. "I'd like to show you why this meeting is so important." Without another word, Marcus began walking toward the waiting executive sedan. Officer Carter hesitated for only a second. Then he followed him. The executive sedan quietly pulled away from the bus stop, followed by the line of city vehicles. Officer Ryan Carter sat silently in the passenger seat of another car, unable to stop thinking about everything that had happened. Marcus Bennett looked out the window, holding the same old leather briefcase that had caused so much confusion only minutes earlier. When they arrived at the city administration building, dozens of senior officials were already waiting outside. The moment Marcus stepped from the car, they greeted him with quiet respect. "Good morning, Mr. Bennett." Marcus smiled politely. "Thank you for waiting." Officer Carter stood frozen. No one questioned Marcus. No one doubted him. Everyone already knew exactly who he was. Thomas Hale turned toward the officer. "Today's budget determines funding for schools, emergency services, public transportation, and every city department for the coming year." Ryan slowly realized how important this meeting truly was. Just then, Marcus looked at him and said calmly, "Officer, would you like to join us?" Before Ryan could answer, a staff member hurried into the hallway carrying a sealed envelope. He looked directly at Marcus. "Sir, we've discovered something unexpected." The room instantly fell silent. Marcus slowly reached for the envelope. Knowing its contents could change the entire meeting. Marcus carefully opened the sealed envelope while every official in the room watched in complete silence. He quickly read the first page, then looked toward Deputy City Manager Thomas Hale. "The numbers were changed," Marcus said calmly. A quiet wave of surprise moved through the room. Thomas frowned. "Can you prove it?" Marcus nodded and opened his old leather briefcase. From inside, he removed a handwritten notebook filled with dates, signatures, and original budget calculations. "I always keep a personal backup," he explained. The officials compared the notebook with the documents in the envelope. Within minutes, they discovered several important figures no longer matched. Officer Ryan Carter watched everything unfold. He finally understood why Marcus had protected the briefcase so carefully at the bus stop. It had never been about hiding anything. It was about protecting information that affected thousands of people. Marcus quietly closed the notebook. "The truth always matters," he said. Just then, a senior official entered the room and announced, "We've identified who altered the budget documents." Every person turned toward the doorway. The name about to be revealed would surprise everyone, especially Officer Carter. The room became completely silent as the senior official stepped forward with the investigation report. He looked at Marcus first, then at everyone gathered around the table. "The altered budget was caught before it could be approved," he announced. The review process worked exactly as it was designed to. A quiet sense of relief spread through the room. Marcus closed his briefcase and smiled. "That's why every document deserves careful attention." Officer Ryan Carter slowly stood. "Mr. Bennett." Marcus looked at him. "I judged you before I knew anything about you. I'm truly sorry." Marcus reached out and shook his hand. "We all make mistakes. What matters is whether we learn from them." Those simple words meant more than any speech. Weeks later, Officer Carter became known for treating every person with patience and respect, never making assumptions based on appearance again. The story of that ordinary bus stop became a reminder throughout the fictional city of Ashcroft that respect should always come before judgment. If this fictional story made you think, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more powerful hidden identity stories with unforgettable karma reveals.